It started with the smell. A thick, nauseating odor crept into every corner of the city, seeping into homes, schools, and workplaces. It was a mix of rotting food, garbage, and something worse, something that made you gag with every breath. People tried to ignore it at first, but it was impossible to escape. The trash that had been carelessly discarded on the streets, in gutters, and vacant lots began to rot under the summer sun. And then it rained. Welcome back to EcoNightmares, where we unveil the true horror stories of nature. Tonight's nightmare is a story worth thinking about. It all started one summer morning when the heat felt unbearable and the streets of the city looked unusually quiet. A thick, stagnant smell lingered in the air. A mix of rotting food, chemicals, and garbage. It wasn't just the usual trash on the sidewalks anymore. It was everywhere. At first, it was just an inconvenience. The trash would pile up along the roadsides, and the waste that was tossed into the gutters would spill over, but we could walk around it, or throw a bag over our shoulder and keep going. But soon, the city's neglect of proper waste disposal began to take its toll. Piles of waste along the streets, plastic bags hanging from trees, bottles littering the gutters. The plastic bottles, food wrappers, and old electronics that people tossed carelessly without a second thought were piling up everywhere, and nobody was doing anything to stop it. No one seemed to be in a hurry to clean it up. For years, the city's waste management system had been unreliable. The trucks that were supposed to pick up the garbage didn't show up regularly. People started dumping their trash on any open space. Overstuffed bins, empty lots, even right next to the newly constructed parks. At first, it was a small issue, but then it spiraled out of control. The authorities said they were working on it, but nothing ever changed. One day, things got much worse. The rain came suddenly, heavy and relentless, just like the monsoons they always warned about. But this time, it wasn't just rainwater flooding the streets. It was a mix of dirty water, trash, and chemicals from the dump sites. The drains, clogged with years of discarded plastic, wrappers, and food waste, could no longer do their job. As the water level rose, it brought with it the waste from every corner of the city. It spilled into homes, businesses, and schools. What followed was chaos. In one neighborhood, the floodwaters seeped into homes, carrying with them everything that had been carelessly thrown into the drains. I watched in disbelief as families struggled to save their belongings from the murky waters, but it was too late. Fridges, clothes, electronics. Everything was destroyed. The stench was unbearable. Not just in the homes, but across the streets, the sight was heartbreaking. Mountains of trash were carried along with the current, making it impossible to navigate the roads. The whole city became a giant landfill. But the damage wasn't just physical. In the days that followed, diseases began to spread rapidly. Waterborne illnesses took hold, and people fell sick. The hospitals, already overwhelmed by the flood, couldn't cope with the number of patients. Children, especially, suffered the most. I remember hearing the cries of a mother from a nearby apartment, her son coughing violently as she tried to comfort him. "The doctor says it's cholera," she told me with tears in her eyes. "The water's contaminated. We never thought it would get this bad." The city, which had once prided itself on its progress, was now drowning. Not just in water, but in its own neglect. There were no enough resources to manage the crisis. The authorities could only respond with band-aid solutions, but it was too late for that. The damage to people's health, homes, and businesses was irreversible. The city's waste management system, which had been an afterthought for years, had finally caught up with everyone. The irresponsibility of dumping trash without proper sorting, without recycling, had poisoned the streets, the rivers, and even the air. It wasn't just a physical mess anymore. It was a public health disaster. As weeks turned into months, recovery was slow. The city tried to clean up, but the job felt too massive. People started taking matters into their own hands, organizing cleanup drives, sorting waste themselves, and trying to recycle what they could. But the damage was done, and the public trust in the authorities had been shattered. What I learned through all of this was simple but stark. Waste is not something that just disappears when you ignore it. It piles up, it festers, it poisons everything around it. The consequences of poor waste management were felt by everyone. those who ignored it, those who tried to manage it, and those who were simply caught in the middle. In the end, the city didn't just lose its streets to the flood. It lost its sense of community and responsibility. All because, for too long, people thought the trash would take care of itself. But trash doesn't go away on its own. It accumulates, and when it does, it takes everything with it. Now, the city is working on recovery, but it's not just about cleaning up the streets anymore. It's about learning how to handle waste properly, sorting it, recycling it, and reducing it. But even as the streets are cleared, it's the lesson that will take the longest to learn. Like, share, and subscribe to EcoNightmares. Stay safe, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.